Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I also want to thank the passionate team at Meadow Lake for inviting me to talk to you today. I know many of you are here because someone you love or a dear friend lives with a form of dementia. You might be beginning to notice some changes, or you're simply trying to understand what the future may hold. Whatever brought you here today, I am so glad that you're here. So my name is Tiffany Clements. I'm the Care Program Development, Education, and Outreach Specialist with Homemade Caregivers. I'm also a CARES Dementia Specialist, one of only 34 in Texas. And I hold a degree in psychology with an emphasis in neuropsychology. Dementia care and supporting families affected by these diseases is truly my heart and soul. It is. For many years, I've had the privilege of walking alongside individuals living with Alzheimer's and related dementia in memory care leadership role and in supporting roles with local dementia support organizations and end-of-life dementia care, all while supporting families, educating caregivers, and helping communities better understand these diseases. I also greatly empathize on a personal level. Taking care of close family members living with these neurodegenerative diseases. I might even need those tissues today talking about it. My hope is that you leave here with less fear and more understanding, and some practical tools that you can begin using immediately. At the end of this talk, I will answer any lingering questions that you have. And if you think of any questions later, my contact information is all in the handouts. Homemade Caregivers has provided me to the community. I am a free resource, and I hope to be a beacon of hope. All right. When most people hear the word dementia, they think about memory loss. While memory is certainly affected, even a hallmark, memory is only one piece of a bigger picture. Dementia changes the brain in many different ways, depending on which areas of the brain are affected. Another area that changes is something called executive functioning. This is located in the frontal lobe of the brain. And think of executive functioning as the brain's chief executing officer. It's responsible for planning and organizing and problem solving, following steps in order, managing time, making decisions, managing finances. As dementia progresses, these abilities become way more difficult. And what looks like laziness or stubbornness is often the brain that can no longer organize or initiate the task. Hello, come on in. Or they may complete tasks out of order. Judgment also changes. Someone may continue driving long after it's no longer safe. They may give away money without enough thought. They may take medications incorrectly or attempt repairs they no longer can safely complete, or insist they can handle situations that have become very dangerous. It's because the brain regions responsible for judgment are changing. One of the most difficult changes for families is understanding that there is a change in insight. Sometimes the brain loses the ability to recognize its own limitations. Your loved one may sincerely believe they are completely capable of doing everything they have always done. Their brain may truly no longer recognize the changes that you can see clearly. They cannot understand logic and reasoning the way you and I can. You can argue all day long, and you will never be able to convince them. Understanding this can completely change the way we respond. We're going to talk a little bit more about this later on in the talk. Perception can also change. This is one of the least talked about changes in dementia, and it's so important. The brain doesn't just help us remember. It helps us interpret what we see. Perception helps us understand objects and situations and time and people correctly. And when perception is impaired, our understanding of the world is skewed and often misinterpreted. Understanding perception helps us realize that many behaviors are logical responses to what the person believes is happening. Language changes can also occur. Finding words becomes difficult. Following conversations becomes harder. Understanding long explanations suddenly becomes overwhelming. Sometimes we assume that someone isn't listening, and in reality, their brain may simply need shorter sentences, more time, and fewer distractions. Emotional regulation often changes too. The brain has a harder time filtering stimulation. Small frustrations may feel overwhelming. Unexpected situations may create fear. We're going to talk a little bit more about that too. Changes in routine may create immense anxiety. And when we understand that the brain is changing, we begin to see behavior in a different light. Instead of asking, how do we stop this behavior? How do we stop them from doing this? We should ask, what is this behavior communicating? Because all behavior in dementia is a form of communication. So before I move on, I do want to talk about something that brings tremendous relief to families once they understand it. And it's something called show timing. Has anyone ever taken a loved one to the doctor only to hear, they seem pretty good to me, which keeps them from receiving the diagnosis they desperately need for more resources, support, and treatment they equally desperately need? Or there is a family visit whereby your loved ones do well for an hour, and visiting family says, I don't think they're doing that badly. I don't think they have dementia. Meanwhile, you're thinking, if you only see what I go through every day. Many people living with dementia can temporarily pull it together enough mental energy to appear more capable during a short visit, a doctor's appointment, church, a family gathering. They're drawing on every reserve they have. But maintaining that level of function, it takes a toll. There is a price. Because afterward they may come home exhausted, more confused, more irritable, or need several hours to recover. They may sundown worse than usual. That doesn't mean that you have imagined the changes. It doesn't mean they're pretending or being manipulative. It feels that way sometimes. It's simply another example of how remarkably complex the brain really is. Understanding show timing helps us stop questioning ourselves and start trusting what we observe over time. All right, so we've spent some time talking about dementia, what it is, how it changes the brain. But understanding dementia is only the beginning, because eventually every family comes to the same question. Now what? How do we continue helping someone live a meaningful life as dementia changes? What can we do? How do we know when they need more help? How do we make those incredibly difficult decisions without feeling we're giving up? I believe the answer begins with remembering something simple. Dementia changes the brain, but it does not change what it means to be human. Every one of us, regardless of our age, our abilities, our diagnosis, has basic human needs. Dementia doesn't erase those needs. It just changes how we help meet them. One of the biggest mistakes we can make is believing that because someone has dementia, these needs somehow become less important. In reality, the opposite is true. As people lose the ability to meet many of these needs independently, our role becomes helping meet them with compassion, creativity, and dignity. Their world is changing, but what they need from us, food, water, safety, love, belonging, purpose, and joy, never goes away. In fact, those needs often become even more important for their well-being and to slow the progression but become more challenging to meet, right? Far more challenging. So we don't need to ask, what can they no longer do? We don't need to focus on the losses. How do we preserve their strengths? How do we help them to continue living well? So one framework that I use is called the Dementia Hierarchy of Human Needs, adapted from a common psychological concept, Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs. So you have a handout here, and we have it up on the board. We're going to talk about this next. As we walk through each level, I encourage you to think about your own loved one and ask yourself these questions. I would like to point out that the tier the need is shown on does not mean that one is more important than the other, but rather that need cannot be attained without the other needs being met that's before it. All of these needs are crucially important. So let's talk physical needs and medical well-being. Every other need rests on this foundation. If someone is hungry or thirsty or in pain or exhausted or struggling with mobility, everything else becomes more difficult, maybe even impossible. So ask yourself, is your loved one's basic needs being met? Let's talk about physical and emotional safety. Once basic needs are met, we have to ask another question. Do they feel physically or emotionally safe? Physical safety includes preventing preventable falls, managing medications, and creating a safe environment. Emotional safety is just as important. Do they feel calm? Do they trust the people around them? Do they feel comforted rather than frightened? Safety is a foundation, but helping someone live well with a quality of life is the goal. Next is connection and belonging. This is really important. One of the deepest human needs is connection. We are wired for connection. Dementia does not change that. People still need connection. They need friendships. They need conversation. They need social engagement. They need to feel loved. They need to be touched. And they need to know that they still belong. Ask yourself, how can your loved one feel loved and connected today? Sometimes sitting quietly beside someone is every bit as meaningful as having a connection and conversation. Let's talk dignity and empowerment. This level is one of my favorites because it is easy to overlook. Dementia may change what someone can do, but it doesn't erase who they are. Every person still deserves choices, maybe simpler choices. Respect, they deserve privacy, the opportunity to participate, to experience success, to use the abilities that they still have. So ask yourself, how can I help them experience success and choice and dignity today? Sometimes our greatest gift isn't doing more for someone. It's finding ways to help them continue doing what they still can for as long as they still can. Joy and purpose. At the top of the hierarchy is something people can forget. Joy and purpose and meaning. Too often we become so focused on keeping someone safe that we forget to ask, what brings this person joy today? Maybe it's music. Maybe it's a favorite hobby. Maybe it's spending time with a grandchild. Maybe it's spending time outside. Maybe it's just folding towels and feeling like they're doing something purposeful. The goal is to help someone continue experiencing a quality of life and a purpose. Even when memories fade, moments still very, very much matter. So as dementia progresses, every level of this hierarchy becomes increasingly dependent on the support of others. Our role isn't simply to keep someone safe. Our role is to help them meet these needs while preserving dignity, strength, and quality of life. So one question I hear from families a lot is that they will say all they want to do is sleep and watch TV. Is that just part of the dementia? Often, yes. The answer is yes. But not exactly for the reason that a lot of people think. One of the changes dementia can cause is a loss of initiation. The person may no longer think, I'd like to call my friend. I'd like to go for a walk. I'd like to work in the garden. I want to join in on this activity. It doesn't necessarily mean that they no longer enjoy those things. It just means that their changing brain can no longer initiate them. So that's where we all come in. As family, as caregivers, as a care team, we become the spark. We become the invitation. We gently initiate the activities their changing brain can no longer begin on their own. Without that invitation, many people will simply remain in the chair. They will sleep more, or they will watch television for hours. You may leave the house and you'll come back and they'll be in the exact same spot they were when you left. They may not have used the restroom. They may not have done what they need to do or eaten. They just sat and they watched television. So, meaningful engagement rarely happens by accident in dementia. It happens because someone intentionally creates that opportunity specifically for them. All right, so much of dementia care becomes focused on what someone has lost. We've talked a little bit about this. I want to encourage you to become an expert at seeing what remains. Maybe they can't prepare Thanksgiving dinner anymore, but they can still stir the batter. Maybe they can't care for the entire garden, but they can still water a plant. They might not can remember your name, but they can still recognize kindness. They can still recognize love. They can still recognize the feeling of being included and the feeling of being excluded. We need to preserve their strengths for as long as possible. So sometimes families tell me, what is the point? They're not going to remember any of it anyway. The goal isn't for them to remember the activity. The goal is for them to just experience it. To laugh, to move, to enjoy music, to share a conversation, to feel connected, to feel loved. These moments matter. They really matter. Even if they cannot tell you about them later. Even if they don't remember every detail 30 minutes later. The experience is real, the emotions are real, the comfort is real, and the joy is real. In dementia care, we often say that while someone may forget what you said or what you did, they often carry the feeling you left them with, even if they don't remember why. They will remember how they feel in your presence, because emotion-laced memories are still very strong for those living with these diseases. That's why every interaction matters. So we've talked about the dementia hierarchy of needs, and those needs become our compass as dementia progresses. The difficult part isn't understanding those needs. The difficult part is recognizing when one person or one environment can no longer meet them all. Families ask me, how do I know it's time? Instead of asking that one question, I encourage you to ask 6 questions. These questions won't make every decision easy, but they'll help keep the person living with dementia at the center of every decision that you make. And that's where this page comes in. Now, I do want to point out that 4 and 5 are flipped in the progression of this talk. So just keep that in mind. So, question 1. Are their human needs still being met? So looking back at the hierarchy, are their physical needs being met? Are they physically and emotionally safe? Are they connected to others? Do they still experience dignity, empowerment, joy, or purpose? And if you're beginning to answer these in your head, not consistently, that isn't a sign of failure. It's a sign that more support may be needed. Remember that safety is the foundation. Helping someone live well and with a quality of life is the goal. Question 2. What strengths can we still preserve? Those strengths, they matter. The earlier we support those strengths, the longer people often continue using them. Don't wait until every opportunity has passed. Question number 3. Has the disease become bigger than the current support? This may be the hardest question of them all. And I want every caregiver here to hear something. There often comes a point in dementia journey where giving 200% is no longer enough. I know because I have been there, and it is devastating feeling. It is a devastating feeling. It is just heartbreaking. And it's a hard one to come to terms with. And that doesn't mean that you've failed. It just means that the dementia has progressed. And maybe you're sleeping only a few hours each night. Maybe medications have become so overwhelming to manage. Maybe you're constantly worried about falls and wandering and emergencies. And maybe you've stopped attending church and you've stopped seeing your friends and spending time with your own family because every ounce of energy goes into caregiving. When that happens, the answer isn't simply to work harder or do even more. Sometimes the answer is to grow your care team. That team might include family. It might include friends and neighbors, professional caregivers at home, or eventually a memory care community. Growing the care team isn't giving up. It's recognizing that one person was never meant to carry a progressive brain disease alone. We were not, as hard as we try. Question number 4, which is number 5 on your pamphlet. Where can these needs be best met? This is where memory care is often misunderstood. Many people think that memory care is simply a safer place. Safety is certainly important, but it's not its greatest purpose. At its best, memory care is an environment intentionally designed around the changing brain. Residents are surrounded by people who understand dementia. Activities are adapted so they can experience success instead of frustration. There are opportunities for movement and music and friendships and purpose and meaningful engagement throughout the day. Staff understands how dementia affects communication and behavior and perception. No one is embarrassed because they forgot a name. No one is judged for asking the same questions and telling the same stories over and over again. No one has to hide the changes the dementia has brought. Instead, they're accepted, included, and encouraged to participate. For many families, something remarkable happens after the transition. They tell me, I feel like I got a part of my loved one back. Not because dementia has improved, but because the environment finally matched what their changing brain needed. Could someone receive wonderful care at home? Absolutely. Many people do with support of family and professional caregivers. This isn't about saying one setting is better than another. It's about asking one simple question. Where can this person's human needs be best met today? Question number 5, which is number 4 on your pamphlet. Are your social needs being met? There is another change I often see that families don't recognize and don't see right away. We can naturally pay close attention to physical changes. Can they walk? Can they dress themselves? Can they toilet themselves? Can they still stay home safely? And all those are important changes and questions. But there are other losses that are just as important. And as dementia progresses, many people begin to lose their place in society, to lose their place socially. Conversations become more difficult. Making new friendships or connecting with old ones becomes much harder. They may stop joining in activities because they're embarrassed or afraid of making a mistake or simply can't keep up with the conversation. Sometimes they're misunderstood. Sometimes they're corrected. Sometimes they're unintentionally or intentionally, sadly, left out. They often become ostracized and sidelined when they are not in an environment built for them and around them. I've seen this time and time again. It's so sad. Sometimes they become just the person with dementia instead of simply another member of the community. Over time, many begin to withdraw. Their world becomes smaller. They're no longer participating. They are initiating less. They're just simply existing. That's why I encourage families to look beyond physical safety. Ask yourself, do they still experience connection? Do they still feel like they belong? Do they still experience dignity? Do they still have opportunities to experience success? Do they still experience joy and purpose? Those needs matter just as much as preventing a fall. Question number 6. Are we waiting too long? One of the things I hear often from families, and truly this is so true, I wish we had done this sooner. I'll be in a memorial of a resident that I took care of, and the family will always say, I wish we had put them in memory care sooner. I wish we had done this sooner. I thought I was protecting them. Because they waited until dementia had progressed so far that their loved one could no longer enjoy everything additional support could have offered. The friendships, the activities, the music, the fun, the joy, the laughter, the movement, the opportunities to contribute, the sense of belonging. the sense of a job well done. The best time to grow the care team is before someone's world has become so small that they can no longer enjoy those opportunities. Don't wait until there's nothing left to preserve. Protect their strengths while they're still there, and protect the moments while they're still possible. Help someone continue living with dignity and connection and purpose and the best quality of life possible. There's one more part of this journey that I believe every family needs to hear, and it's something that weighs heavily on many caregivers. And that is the promises that we make and the promises we try so hard to keep. Sometimes the promise was made years before dementia ever entered our lives. Promise me you'll never put me in a nursing home. Or maybe you made the promise yourself. I'll always take care of Mom. I'll never let Dad leave home. I can do this. Those promises were made out of love, out of loyalty, out of desire to protect the people who spent their lives protecting us. But dementia changes the journey in ways none of us could have fully imagined. Sometimes those promises don't stay in the past. As dementia progresses, your loved one may continue saying, "Don't ever put me in a facility. Promise me you'll take me home. I don't belong here." If you've heard those words, you know how deeply they can hurt. You question yourself. You wonder if you failed. Sorry. Like I said, this hits home as well for me too. You replay every decision. You carry the guilt that few people truly understand. I want you to know something today. If you've ever wrestled with those thoughts, you are certainly not alone. You are not. One of the most heartbreaking realities of dementia is that the disease can affect a person's inside. They may no longer recognize how much they truly need help. This isn't stubbornness. It isn't manipulation. It isn't because they're trying to make your decisions harder. Their brain has changed. And many people living with dementia sincerely believe they can still safely live alone. That they can still drive a car. That they can manage their medications. They can cook meals. Or return to life exactly how it once was. Not because they're in denial, but because the disease has changed the part of the brain responsible for recognizing those changes. When someone says, "Take me home," they're often asking for much more than a house. Home represents safety and comfort and familiarity and security, a place where they felt known, a place where life makes sense. Sometimes what they're really saying is, "Help me feel safe. Help me feel loved. Help me feel like I belong." And those are needs we can continue to meet even when the address changes. So I want to offer you a different question. Instead of asking, "Am I keeping every word of the promise?" ask yourself, "Am I honoring the heart behind the promise?" What did your loved one truly want? Did they want to be unsafe? Did they want you to sacrifice your own health until there was nothing left of you? Did they want you to live isolated from meaningful activity, from friendships and opportunities for joy? Or did they want to be loved and protected and respected and treated with dignity, surrounded by people who genuinely care for them? I believe that is truly the heart of the promise. And that promise can be honored in many different ways. Sometimes at home, sometimes with the support of professional caregivers, sometimes in a memory care community. The setting may change, but the promise does not have to. And one of the things I gently encourage families is to stop saying, I had to put mom in a memory care. Instead, I encourage them to think about it differently. You did not replace yourself. You grew the care team. You're still the daughter and the son and the husband and the wife and the advocate. You're still the person who knows how they like their coffee. You're still the one who remembers their stories. You're still the one they have loved for a lifetime. The only thing that changed is that you invited more people to help carry a responsibility that had become too great for one person alone. Now, throughout this afternoon, we've talked about how dementia changes the brain, and we've talked about how human needs never changed, and we talked about preserving strengths and protecting dignity and helping someone continue living well. And over the years, I've had the opportunity to work alongside many families and personal caregivers and individuals living with dementia, and one thing became very clear to me. The best interactions weren't based on having the perfect words. They were based on understanding. And that's why I developed the Home Bloom Dementia Pathway for homemade caregivers. And under this umbrella term, where many other programs will be created, I created a tool called the Pink Petal Pathway. Now, on the back of this sheet here, let me see. On the back of this sheet here, you'll see a smaller version of the Pink Petal Pathway. You'll see the picture of the flower. And that's where the big, giant pink flower comes in. All right, we'll see if it's going to continue to squeal at me. All right. So this is what is called the Pink Petal Pathway. Petal stands for pace yourself, enter their reality, trust before task, adapt creatively, and leave them with dignity. I wanted to create a tool that could be used whether you're a professional caregiver, a family caregiver, a friend, anybody that has any kind of interaction with those living with Alzheimer's or dementia. So let's first talk about pace yourself. Pace yourself is about slowing down. It's about coming at them from the front, directly in front of their eyes, not coming up behind them and giving them a big bear hug, as we all want to do. We need to reduce urgency and give space. Your calm becomes their calm. Okay? What I often tell caregivers, if you rush, you're going to take way longer, or you may not even get the task completed. Okay? Because if you rush and your loved one feels rushed, they clam up, they shut down. So that's why pace yourself is so important. It actually saves time. Next is enter their reality. And I can't stress this one enough. This is about not arguing with them, not correcting them, just living in their reality, because our brains are flexible and can change, but theirs are not. We cannot pull them into our reality. We have to go into theirs. We have to meet them where they are. We have to validate their feelings and focus on their feelings. Next is trust before task. This means that connection comes first. This is very important for professional caregivers that may not know your loved one and their resident very well. This is about getting to know them. But this is also still very relevant for family members because it's about creating that connection, not becoming task-driven. I've got to feed, I've got to medicate, I've got to bathe, I've got to toilet. It is about creating that connection slowing down, talking about everything but what you want them to do. Walk them to where they need to be, having a wonderful, calm conversation, and you just so happen to get them right to that bathroom. And, while we're here, let's do this. Let's do that. Next is, and one more thing with trust before task. It is important, like we talked about, they will remember how you make them feel. And you're thinking, but how? How do they remember that? They don't remember what they ate for breakfast. Emotional memory, like we talked about in the talk here. Emotional memory is still very strong. They may not remember why, but they will remember when they see you or they see a caregiver, ooh, I feel safe around this person, or ooh, something just feels off. And here they are, they want to take me to the bathroom, and they want to take my clothes off, and they want me to take a shower in the middle of the day. I don't know if I can trust them. Okay, that's why trust before task is so important. Next is adapt creatively. Be flexible and responsive, and see the situation through their eyes. Understand the fear behind the reluctance. Real quick, we're going to do a little exercise I want to show you, because I really want to drive this home. When we talk about fear behind the reluctance. So if we see here, we've talked about how dementia affects perception. We talked about that, but this is a demonstration to show you how. So we know that perception changes, and when we take our loved ones to the restroom, and we are getting ready to give them a shower, and we take the shampoo, we reach for it, we have it in our hands, and they're like, whoa, wait, what is that? What is that? What are you putting in my hair? It's just shampoo. No, that's not shampoo. You put that down. It's because to them, their perception has changed. Their perception has changed. To them, it could be something threatening. And if we are presented with a stimulus that feels threatening, what do? Get that away from me. I don't want any part of that. What are you doing? Okay, again, another example. We have a toothbrush. We're trying to brush the teeth of our loved one, or a caregiver is trying to brush the teeth of a loved one. Okay, you go at them with the toothbrush. Okay, let's brush our teeth. They're like, whoa, what is that? Get that away from me. What is that? It's a toothbrush. We're going to brush your teeth. No, that's not a toothbrush. I know what a toothbrush is. To them, it may look like this. It may be something threatening. Do you want this near your body, or do you want this near your mouth? No. So, but I've seen where residents will use a toothbrush to shave, to use a toothbrush to comb their hair, because perception has changed. So the last one here is leave them with dignity. No shame, no embarrassment, no feeling of being overpowered. We want to always protect dignity and safety. And we've talked a lot about that today. So for a more in-depth explanation of the pink petal pathway, I have a link to a QR code here. And if you're not QR code friendly, that is okay. You can email me. My email is on all over these sheets, and I will send you a direct link. This is a QR code to our Facebook page for current events, and most importantly, it is a QR code to our YouTube channel with lots and lots of educational videos and content that I have created. And this talk will actually be on it eventually as well. Thanks to my son, Lance, who's been interning with Homemade Caregivers this summer. And so he's filmed us today. So I highly encourage you to take this link and go and see all those wonderful videos. And there is a video that talks about each one of these petals in depth. I mean, it goes really in depth, and you'll really enjoy it. So before we finish, I want to sincerely thank each and every one of you for taking the time to be here today. Caring for someone living with dementia is not an easy task, and your willingness to learn speaks volumes about the love and commitment you have for the people in your life. I'd also like to thank Meadow Lake Senior Living for their warm hospitality and for their commitment to supporting individuals and families affected with dementia. If this afternoon's conversation has been helpful, I want you to know it doesn't have to end here. I have the privilege of facilitating a monthly support group here each month, every third Wednesday. There is a flyer here in the back that tells you the information you need to join us at this support group. And whether you're a family caregiver, a friend, a neighbor, or simply looking for education, encouragement, or a place to connect with people who understand, please join us. Please come and join us. You do not have to walk this journey alone. Thank you again for being here, and it's been an honor to spend time with you this afternoon, and I will be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you so much.